What's up, Zelda enthusiasts? Man, it's good to be a Zelda fan right now. With the hype high for Skyward Sword HD and the future looking bright for Breath of the Wild 2, I want to put together a video numbering the references that are located within that of the sequel of Breath of the Wild when it comes to its trailers. While the big reveal in the second trailer showed that we are going to be returning to the skies above the surface, just like in Skyward Sword, the two trailers for Breath of the Wild 2 actually contain a number of references to Ocarina of Time, which would make a ton of sense considering that Ganondorf has returned in the flesh, literally. And with Ocarina of Time being the debut of the Demon King of Evil, at least in his human form, there is no doubt that the game is going to contain a number of callbacks to that legendary game. So let's get started and dive directly back into the legend with the Ocarina of Time references found in Breath of the Wild 2. If you're a Zelda fan, be sure to like and subscribe for more Zelda content every week. The first reference is of course Ganondorf and his followers. This has been a tale that has been spoken since A Link to the Past, but really made it clear in Ocarina of Time, in which the demon thief Ganondorf Dragmar and his followers would roam, pillage, and kill in search of the golden power and world domination, a quest that he'll undoubtedly continue in Breath of the Wild 2. Another reference within the first trailer deals with the location that Link and Zelda are in upon reaching Ganondorf's corpse, and that is of course under the ground. This deals with a supposed hidden history that was locked away from the surface of Hyrule and maybe even that of the royal family. This isn't really a new concept, as in Ocarina of Time, the royal family's hidden bloody history would be contained and isolated in the depths, specifically beneath the well and the Shadow Temple, which were both underground. And these concepts of underground hidden history tied to the royal family of Hyrule, of course, is a secret that is held by the Sheikah tribe. As we wrap up the first trailer, because there's a ton more references in the second trailer, there is actually a huge reference to that fateful first meeting in Ocarina of Time within that of Breath of the Wild 2. You know what I'm talking about, where you locate Zelda in her garden in Ocarina of Time, and when she looks surprised to meet you, she gives a very alarmed turnaround. This actually got referenced multiple times within the Zelda games, specifically in Twilight Princess and in Skyward Sword, but I'm glad to see that this little nod is intact from Ocarina of Time going into Breath of the Wild 2. Just like how in a lot of Zelda games, Link wakes up from either a nap or being knocked out. And then we come to Ganondorf with his terrifying piercing stare as he turns his face to possibly look at Zelda. It could be Link, but I'm not entirely sure because the trailer structures it like he was looking at Zelda. But that doesn't matter because this is a reference to Ocarina of Time, in which Ganondorf was meeting the King of Hyrule but was able to spot Link and Zelda spying on him through the window, giving that sudden terrifying glance, which would mark the first meeting between Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf that is referenced in Breath of the Wild 2. And then we have Hyrule Castle rising out of the ground. That one is actually a big deal, but we'll get to that later because we have another trailer to go through. Now here's a cool one that a lot of people seem to have missed when it comes to a reference from Ocarina of Time living in Breath of the Wild 2. It deals with the pose that Ganondorf takes within the second Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. You see something familiar? If not, this is the pose that Ganondorf takes when he supposedly dies after the first round of combat in the final boss fight in Ocarina of Time, in which he exerts his power in order to tear down his castle in a last-ditch effort in order to bury Zelda and Link under the rubble. And then he's down for the count. We all know that this isn't his final defeat and that he becomes Ganon a little bit later in the game, but it's cool to see that Ganondorf in his human form fell with this pose and that Ganondorf returning in Breath of the Wild 2 is rising with this pose, almost as if to exert his power once again. And then we come to the supposed time travel manipulation that we see in Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, of course, we do have the reversal of time, which seems to be a power that's based off of stasis from the original Breath of the Wild, but I'm talking about that water drop that seems to be falling in reverse in the trailer, which hints at the supposed idea of time manipulation once again in The Legend of Zelda. While this isn't a new concept, it's a concept that was introduced in Ocarina of Time. And if many theories are true, then we're possibly going to two time periods within that of Breath of the Wild 2, which would harken back all the way to Ocarina of Time. Now, this next one is a bit of a reach and deals with the end of the trailer, in which Hyrule Castle is crumbling in order to be lifted up into the ground. As we can see here, one of the towers fall. I know this is a reach, but it could be referencing that one lone tower that's from the original Hyrule Castle that still exists in the future. in Ocarina of Time in the Ganon's castle location, but that's a stretch. However, history repeats itself with Ganondorf rising a castle from the ruins of Hyrule Castle, just like he did in Ocarina of Time, in which it floats over a cesspool of red dangerous substance, almost like a cesspool of malice, even all the way back in Ocarina of Time. And with the castle lifted above the ground, above dangerous malice, it seems maybe the only way in is going to be a bridge that will be able to get to the castle, instead of, trying to hoof it directly to the castle like we were able to in the original Breath of the Wild. Honestly, I think this does hint at the idea of trying to unlock a way to the castle this time around in Breath of the Wild 2, as I doubt any of the floating islands will give you a good enough range to get to the castle by gliding. And with this obvious reference, homage to Ganon's castle from Ocarina of Time floating above the ground, and with the only way in during that time was having a bridge built by the 6 sages, I feel that this could lead to a theory on the sages returning in some way, shape, or form in Breath of the Wild 2, who are very important to the Zelda lore and Ocarina of Time specifically when we deal with the sages of the elements. And of course, at the end of the trailer, we hear a very faint, chilling version of Zelda's lullaby. While this tune was introduced in A Link to the Past, it wasn't named until Ocarina of Time, as there was no context to it being a lullaby in A Link to the Past, as it was merely a theme for Zelda and the maidens in that game. So yeah, Ocarina of Time reference, baby! And there you have it. Off the 2 trailers of Breath of the Wild 2 alone, we have a ton of references from that game that harkens back to Ocarina of Time. And I am sure that we're gonna get a lot more when the game comes out, or possibly when more trailers come out. Did I blow your mind? If I did, leave a comment in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK for more Zelda content every week. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, check out my info in the description box below, as well as where to find my merch. Alright guys, until the next Zelda video, this has been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.